Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rick Salgy. I'm the son of Richard and Joan. I'll be conducting today. Welcome to this service for Steve J. Salgy. Much loved. Thank you for traveling in this inclement weather. Special thanks to the American Legion, who will be performing some services here in a moment. Prior to that, we'll have an opening song, My Country 'Tis of Thee. My wife, Susan, will be at the piano, and my mother will be the chorister. Following the opening song, we'll have an invocation by Susan Lamb, at which point we'll have the American Legion perform their services. We'll proceed at that point.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful family on this beautiful snowy day to celebrate the life of Steve, and for the us and the agreement that we had with him. Families, and for that brings to us, thy Spirit to be with us. And we say these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Just one additional thing. As the American Legion performs their service and they begin to play taps, it would be appropriate if the audience rose and stood, place your hand over your heart. If you're a service member in the past, you're welcome to salute.
Honor guard, 10, cut. Present arms. Order, arms. Staff post.
The American Legion and the United States of America are happy today to honor the memory of Steve J. Salgy. The flag is presented by a grateful nation in recognition of his service in the Navy of the United States. We hope that this flag will be brought out sometimes in his honor and memory, reminding others of his dedication to this nation and the principles upon which it was founded. Now the honored by Rifleman of the After sort of a sentimental sacred goodbye, we encourage everyone, when you hear that bugle, put the right hand on the heart. Those of us who've been in the military will salute. The Lord bless you and the family in the name of Jesus Christ.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you give us just a moment or two to form up in the parking lot, we'll fire at that point. In the past, we fired from the other side. It's still snowy out there today, so we're going to work here out of the parking lot. You're welcome to come in the foyer if you'd like. And so to see her, just here for sure you prefer. Okay, so give us just a couple minutes to get set up. Thank you. Okay, John, let's come on out.
I'd like to thank the American Legion for the excellent manner in which they paid tribute to Uncle Steve. At this point, we'll have the following people come up in the following order: Emily Conk, Leanne Stewart, and then Jade Jensen. We'll go to that point. So, Emily.
I would like to start by expressing my gratitude for our military servicemen and women who just paid tribute to my grandpa. I'm so grateful for their service, for his service, and what it means for our freedoms. So originally, my mom was supposed to speak today, and she asked me if I wanted to, and truthfully, I was delighted because I had a special bond with my grandpa. And it has been that way for a long, long time. I'm going to start with this letter. I'm sure you can't see it from where you're at, but I had a school assignment when it was in 1994, and I was asked to write a paragraph about someone who is very important to me, and I chose my grandpa, Steve. And I don't remember this. It was that long ago, but it meant a lot to him. And this is the original envelope with the letter that I wrote to him in it and the paragraph that I wrote for him. And Grandpa and I called each other Bubba. That I called him Bubba, he called me Bubba. And that was just our long-standing everything, every present, every Christmas gift he ever gave me said to Bubba, from Bubba. And so in this, when I read this to you, that's who it's referring to when it says Dear Bubba and Love Bubba. But he's kept it all these years. And this is a testament to the type of life that Steve lived. He took great care of everything. There's been times that I've asked myself, how do you live to be 102 and stay as active and as healthy as Grandpa did? And I think one of the secrets to a long, successful life is the care that he took in everything. He kept his home beautiful. He kept his vehicles beautiful. He kept his yard beautiful. He kept himself beautiful. And as I was watching the pictures, the slideshow, before the services started, in every single picture, he just held himself in esteem, and he took great care of everything. So I was not surprised when I received this letter that it was in as good a shape as it is. And he had expressed to me and to all of our family members that he wanted me to read this at his funeral. And so I'm honored to be able to do that today. Bubba, in school I had to write a paragraph on someone that was special to me, and you were the first one to come to my mind. So I sent an extra copy. I hope you get feeling better. Everyone says hi, and we all love you and Grandma. Love, Bubba. A person that is very special to me is my Grandpa Steve. I look up to him in a lot of ways. For one thing, he is 74 years old, and he takes us swimming all the time and teaches us how to dive. He plays golf all the time, too. Grandpa is very caring. Whenever I don't look very happy, he comes and cheers me up. We have a nickname for each other, Bubba. We always hold our thumbs up and say, hey, Bubba. My Grandpa Steve is bundles of fun. He always wants to take us to his cabin for the weekends. At night, he sleeps on the decks with us. Then he gets up really early, and he and my grandma make breakfast for everybody. Whenever I go to stay with him, he lets me sleep in his bed, and he sleeps on the couch. He is definitely special to me, and I love him a lot. Love always, Bubba. So I would like to share a few memories today and a couple of treasures. In my paragraph, when I say he always takes us swimming, that's no lie. And it wasn't just us. It was 4 little lamb children, my cousin Glenn, and I'm willing to bet his buddy Mike was there with us a few times. So that's 6 children. Most likely we were all under the age of 10, and Bubba would wrangle us all up, and off we'd go to the pool in the trailer park. And it wasn't just short, it was hours and hours and hours of swimming. 1 adult, lots of little kids, lots of energy. And we always had a diving contest, and he would rate us. And you can ask my cousins, you can ask my siblings. Every time there was one winner, and every time it was me. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not a diver, and I'm not a great swimmer. I still, to this day, jump into the water with my nose plugged, and I'm sure it was more of a belly flop than a beautiful dive. Although he was right on the edge of the pool showing us exactly what the good form looked like. I'm grateful for those memories. I'm grateful for having a grandpa in my life that was willing to take us over and over and over. As soon as one of us was hungry or thirsty, we would all hop out of the pool, walk the couple blocks back to his house, get a popsicle. There was often a can of Coke or a 7-Up in the fridge, and I'm sure we hadn't even completely dried off yet, and we were ready to go back. And he just did it time after time. The cabin is another special memory. You know Grandpa Steve, you know that he was so clean, and you've never seen a home or a cabin that had cleaner windows than his. And when I say clean windows, you couldn't tell if the door was open or closed, as my little brother Thomas can attest to. We're running around the cabin, screaming, I'm sure making Grandma a nervous wreck, and Thomas ran smack into the window and fell straight back. He had no idea that that door was closed. I value that. It taught me so many things about taking care of what you have, spending time with the family that you have, and not taking a single second for granted. I spent many evenings, days, maybe weekends in my grandparents' home. And my grandma and I were especially close. And Grandpa would send us out the door, off to the mall, to go to ZCMI and eat in the tiffin room and go shopping. And every time we'd get back, I will always be able to picture him in the lazy boy recliner, just grinning ear to ear as I showed him all of the treasures that we found together at the mall. I remember many mornings watching The Price is Right with he and Grandma and eating cinnamon toast on the couch. He gave up his bed so that I could sleep in the bedroom with Grandma, and he was on the couch. My other thing that really stands out is that Bubba never stopped moving. He was always doing, and I really think that is the secret to a long life. When he retired, he didn't really retire. He golfed, and he didn't drive over the golf course. He walked, and he walked, and he walked. He always had a great tan and a big smile and lots of stories to tell and always a joke to share. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the man that he was and the life that he lived and the things that he taught us. All right. This is a treasure that I got from Grandpa, and it has a great story. After Grandma passed, some things kind of got cleaned up and moved out of the house, and the grandchildren were given a piece of furniture or something from the home. And I was given a cabinet that my grandma had full of knickknacks and figurines. And I remember seeing this in the cabinet my entire childhood. And so as my husband and I went down to get this cabinet, he had cleaned the figurines out of it and he had them set aside and said, "These were your grandma's. You are welcome to take them. Anything you don't want, just leave here." And this was sitting on the coffee table. And so I looked at it and I said, "Well, was this yours or was it Grandma's?" And he said, he kind of chuckled. And then he was holding back a few tears. And he said, "It was mine and I'm giving it to you. And let me tell you why." He said this was the best thing that my grandma ever gave him. And I assumed that it was a flask because he had a few of those hidden around the house. It's not. It's a cologne bottle, and it's a gold Cadillac. And this is the story. The very first year that they were married, Christmas time was coming up, and Grandma kept asking Bubba what he wanted for Christmas. And he said, "All I want, Shirley, is a gold Cadillac. If you get me a gold Cadillac, I'll never ask for anything ever again." And so time getting closer and closer, and pretty soon it's Christmas morning. And he wakes up, and he just can't wait, I'm sure, to tease her. And so he says, "Well, where's my gold Cadillac?" And he said she didn't miss a beat. And she said, "It's in the driveway." And he kind of looked at her, and he went outside. And there this sat. And he said they chuckled and chuckled and chuckled. And for the rest of their lives, anytime he would ask for something, she would say, "Well, I already got you a gold Cadillac. What else could you want?" So this now sits in my home in that cabinet. And every time I look at that, I just think of both of them laughing and smiling together. And what else could you want in life but a gold Cadillac, right? I would hope you'll bear with me. As I was preparing for this, I thought of the treasures and the memories and all the things I wanted to share today. And my oldest son, Corgan, happens to be a history buff and really has a deep respect and love for our U.S. military. And so when we think he was about 10, we don't have a date on this, but he had the opportunity again through a school assignment to sit down and record stories from a military serviceman or woman. And so what do we think, Corgan? It was probably about 11 years ago that he made this recording, and we listened to it last night, and I just felt very strongly that I should share today. It's not real long, and there is some parts where there's some background noise, but let me see if I can just set this up here real quick. Just play.
And can you answer them for me?
Yeah.
So this was back in World War II. What was it like back then?
What do you mean, what was it like?
Like-
Just being in the submarine or World War II?
Like World War II, like what was it like? What year was it? What was it like? And then we'll
I'll
talk
tell
about the
you,
submarine.
some of it was bad and some of it was good.
Sorry, there's some music.
It was 319 and a half feet long, and it was 29 and a half feet across.
Mm-hmm. How many rooms did it have?
They're compartments, they're not rooms in the Navy. Let's see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 rooms? How many? Oh, compartments, sorry. How about torpedoes?
They had 6 torpedo tubes up front, the front end of the boat, and 4 in the back. So they had 10 tubes.
And your submarine was named the Greenland? Greenland?
What?
What was your submarine named?
The USS Greenling.
Greenling.
It's in the Greenling. Was named after fish. Submarines used to be named after fish. They don't do that no more. They name them after persons.
Oh, so you told me that was before. You told me that it was green inside. So that's why you hate the color green besides money, grass, and...
I told you what?
So it was green inside, right?
No, it wasn't green inside. It was white inside.
Oh. Well, then how can you hate the color green?
Because it was named after a fish. The fish group was, there was a greenling, the grouper, and a growler. Those were all fishes. Ours was named Greenling. There was a submarine called the grouper and one called the growler. But like I said, they don't name them after fish no more.
How many ships have you sunk?
I couldn't tell you without going getting a picture, but they got quite a few both merchant ships and warships.
So what did you do on the Greenling?
I was in the motor room.
So you drove it?
No, I was just one of the mechanics in the motor room.
Cool. So what year was this?
1943.
And so, do you have any stories?
Which one you want? I can give you why 13 is my lucky number.
Okay.
Our ship was number 213. It was Friday the 13th, and they were gonna fire torpedoes at an enemy merchant ship, and it was really, really rough seas, and they spotted us, and they dropped 13 depth charges, and so it was boat number 213, Friday the 13th, and I heard and felt my first 13 depth charges, and that's why 13 is my lucky number.
That's cool.
Anyways, it goes on. He talks about some scary times in his service. He talks about a good friend, a best friend, actually. I think Corgan asked him who his best friend was on the ship, and he talks about a young man from Illinois, and that they never saw each other again after their time in the military together. These are the treasures that I'm thankful for, the memories that I have, the care that he took of my grandma, of us grandkids. So grateful for that. I want to share one more experience and then I'm going to wrap it up. February 3rd, 2023, my husband and I were with some friends that were visiting from out of state, and we went ice fishing on a little reservoir outside of Evanston, Wyoming. And it's in an area where there's no cell phone service. And I knew Grandpa wasn't doing well, and I had been down to visit him a few times before this. And the last time that I was there, he was asleep the whole time I was there, but he had football on the TV and he was in his bed. And I was able to just stand by his side and hold his hand and tell him how much I loved him. And I knew that that was going to be the last time that I saw him. So anyways, a couple weeks later, we're in this area ice fishing with no service. And if you know Wyoming, you know the wind is always blowing. And It was a beautiful day. There was no wind, and it wasn't too cold. Cold enough that we were standing on a frozen reservoir, but not too cold. And I was just watching, and I knew that he was gone. I felt his presence letting me know that he had passed. I had no signal. I had no way to check my phone and see. And the second, we stayed out there all day. The second we got back into town, as soon as my phone got signal, it started chirping at me. And I had some missed calls and some text messages, and I already knew. I'm so thankful for that knowledge that we have. I'm so thankful, and I know with all my heart that there is life after death. I know that he's reunited with 3 of his own children, with his family members that have already gone, with my grandma. I'm thankful for that knowledge. I'm thankful for everything Bubba taught me, the legacy that he left, and my time and my memories with him. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Take me longer to waddle up here than to talk, but that was great, Emmy. I'm just going to talk about a few memories that we have of Steve. And so I'll start with when I married my husband, Kent. First 2 people we invited was Mom and Steve. We got married in Vegas, and then Bess and Ed. So we went down, and Marilee and Lane, to Vegas, and they showed us such a good time. And Marilee had never been out of the state of Utah, so Steve just thought that was so funny and took us to a girly show. Didn't last long there. And then they took us to a really nice show at one of the casinos, but we were sitting there playing cards and gambling, and it was just really fun. I thought this is a great way to start our marriage, with the 4 people that meant most to me. And then Bess and Ed were close to Steve. Well, they were close to us too. They were just background. They were my grandmother and grandfather's best friends. So Ed and Steve met through our grandma Lucy, and they just clicked. And from there on, they built the cabin together, and just were always, always together. There were very few times that I can recall that my mom got mad at Steve. I mean, aggravated, yes, but mad. Except for one day, I thought, well, I'll stop by and say hi. And I walked in, and they were just at each other. I said, I think I'll go home and come back. They said, no, you sit right down. Mom said, I want your opinion, Leanne. I thought, I ain't going to get in the middle of this one. But I guess Mom had been somewhere playing bridge or golfing, and she came home, and Steve, with his cleanliness, had decided he would clean out the closet, clothes closet, and the dresser drawers. But only ones he touched was Mom's. And he went through, and he threw away like half of her wardrobe. He threw away 3 pairs of pants. He said, they're all gray. You don't need 3 pairs of pants. And you threw everything away. And he says, well, you just don't need all that. And she said, okay, tomorrow when you go to work and you come home, don't expect to have anything in your closet that has more than one color. If you have 2 red shirts, they're gone. Then he got mad. And then she said, then to top it off, I went to go in the restroom, and he'd taken the drawer out that had all of her makeup. And he'd gone through all that and decided what she should keep and didn't need and didn't need. And then he bundled the rest of them up and put a rubber band around them. She said, I can't even get to these. There's a blankety blank rubber band around them. She was so mad at him. But he always took us to the cabin. During the building, Jordan in particular would go up with them all the time. And her and Mom would sit on the counter and Steve had gone and bought small utensil things like the miniature bread pans and the miniature rolling pins so that Jordan could make bread with Mom. And they'd sit up there for hours and do that. And Steve would just smile at him, and then he got to taste it all. But that was really fun memories for me to remember Jordan and Mom and Steve up there. And in the summertime when it'd get really hot, I don't think Jordan was more than 3, maybe 4. But Steve decided he was going golfing, and us girls were going to stay at the cabin and suntan on the top deck. So we'd gone and bought a little children's swimming pool. And he set it up there and said, that's too damn cold for water. The water's too cold for you, Jordan. So he went up, and I don't know, you probably all went to the cabin, but it had spiral staircases. And so he'd haul the hot water from the sink up those stairs, dump it in the pool, and go back down, do another bucket full. He must have made 20 or 30 trips just so Jordan wouldn't have to sit in cold water. And I think that was really special for her. He just, like Emily was saying, his rose garden was beautiful. He came over and helped Kent and I put in our rose garden. Him and Mom went shopping and bought a lot of flowers to put in there. And Kent was cussing. I don't want flowers. I don't want flowers. I don't know anything about them. But within 2 weeks, Kent was out there trimming them and taking care of them. And Steve spent hours with us doing our yard, doing the garden, and then on holidays, doing the decorations outside. He made sure that they were always beautiful and hung up. And when Susan and them had their home in Evanston, we had some red bells that Mom liked, and Steve came down and took them out of our basement to give them to Susan to hang on their cabin because she had some strings. Oh, Kent, my husband, was so mad. He took my red bells. But he was happy to give them to Susu, and their house was decorated so wildly that they could see it from Evanston. You could see their house. And one of their neighbors made him a sign. Was it Griswold? And said, this house belongs to the Griswolds, so that everybody knew it was so decorated. And so we had to all ride up to that and see all of that. It was beautiful. I got to put my glasses on so I can see which my next note was. Oh, when I was pregnant with Jordan, I was single at the time, and they had a hutch that I think Emily talked about, and a dining room table that they had bought. And it happened to be, Mom said, will you come over and sit when they deliver, because Steve will be at work. And I think she might have still been working at that time. And I said, yeah, I'll come over. And so, of course, that morning, I wake up and I'm in a little bit of labor. I thought, oh, this isn't bad, you know, how you feel the first couple of times. So I'll still go over. So I went over, and I don't know, within a few hours, my water broke. And then the labor wasn't quite so fun. And I called Mom, and she come home, and I said, you've got to take me to the hospital. She said, no, let's wait for Steve. And I said, Mom, I really don't know if I can wait. And she said, well, let's wait for Steve. So we waited about a half an hour, and I said, that's it, I'm calling a cab. And so she said, all right. So we get in the car, and we're going down the street on that, is it 1600? And we pass Steve coming home from work. And she says, there's Steve. So she stops the car, turns around, goes back to the house, starts screaming at Steve, you got to drive us to the hospital. He says, still from work. She said, go shower. So I'm sitting there showering. So Steve had to shower. It was probably the fastest shower he ever took. And then he had to drive us back down, and I could see him glaring at me through the rearview mirror. And so he got me into the hospital emergency room, and he had to go and sit in the father's waiting room. At that time, you can all go into the delivery. And he said, I never thought I'd have to sit in a room like this again. But he took good care of us. He made sure Jordan was there and safe, and gave her a kiss, and he probably went home and had a drink and said, I hope that's the end of that. But so anytime her birthday comes around, I think it's Steve doing that for me. But he sure got yelled at. Mom was just a hooting. While I was screaming, drive faster, and Mom was screaming, drive slower, you'll wreck. Oh, man. And before they built the cabin, we used to have, Steve would have a camping trailer party. There was a KOA just across the street from Wasatch that Steve loved. They liked to golf there, so all of his Geneva friends and would come, and they'd all bring their trailers. And Steve and his one friend had built this huge barbecue pit, roasted like a whole pig, a whole lamb, whatever you wanted. And they decided that they were going to roast a pig that year. And so all of us were up there, and Steve's got this idea to get us all in a line. So we had to march. And of course, he's at the head of the line, and in and out and around this whole trailer court. 50, 60 drunks. I'm sure the other campers were really impressed. And he went back to the truck, and one of Steve's good friends was Italian. And so Steve says, open your trunk, there's a surprise for you. That's something you'll never be able to resist. So he opens it, and Steve had cut the pig's head up, the head of the pig, and put it in the trunk. And he says, there's an offer you can't refuse. He thought that was so funny and laughed, but every time I think of that guy, I think of him in that pig's head looking at us. Ugh. It was just his personality, his way. And can't even read my own writing. He did a lot of stuff for Santa with the Elks, and spent a lot of time picking out presents to match everybody. He did a lot of time with the poppy promotions where you'd go sit and hand out the poppies for Veterans Day. And he just loved to go down to the Elks and dance and carry on with all of his friends down there. Another thing, when they built the cabin, besides building it very quickly and doing most of the work, 90% of the work, they paid for the sinks and the toilets and stove and fridge, all of that. They paid it with silver dollars. And we'd go to the store, and he'd plop down that big bag of silver dollars and say, does this cover the cost? The people said, yeah. So where'd you get all the silver dollars? He said, from gambling. But him and Mom saved them, and there were, well, as you can imagine, a lot of silver dollars. Now I wish we'd kept them, but he had all that paid for with silver dollars. And he had Lane and another friend come up, and they laid all the red carpet for him. And that was fun. Other than that, I think Steve and Ed and a few friends did 90% of the work. Another friend of Steve's made the spiral staircase, and another one gave him a big tank to put underneath the cabin in case they ran out of water. They could always pull on that. But he loved that cabin. And one of the last memories I remember, we were sitting up on the cabin on the deck, and everybody else had gone to sleep. Steve turned to me and he said, you know, Leanne, I had a really rough childhood. And he said, but through it all, he said, I had my brother Ivan and my other siblings that helped us all. We kind of stood up together against his father. It was old school, I guess, but he He said, I never in my whole life thought that I would be able to sit here on this porch and look down over the cabin and over the valley. And he said, it's meant more to me than I can ever say. He said, didn't do too bad for a poor boy from Duluth. And I said, no, not too bad at all. But it meant everything to him. And the day he sold it, I'm sure he was extremely heartbroken. But he said he lost a lot of the fun when Mom wasn't there to go up with him and some of his other friends that they used to always go up with. But he loved us. He always made us feel welcome. And one of the things that he did for me was he put a railing so I could get up and down from the steps. And he did the first part, and a couple days later, knock on the door, and he brought Larry, and he said, we're going to finish this perfect for you. And so they fixed it all. And I still, when I use that, Larry, I say, thank you, Larry, and thank you, Steve, because it's helped me in and out. But there wasn't a time that I can think of that Steve wasn't there for me and Susan. And like him, he said the grandkids meant everything to him. He was full of love and laughter. And watching some of the pictures just reminded me of some of the memories that I had forgotten, some of the things he used to do for all of us. But he was a grand man, and I'm so glad he was part of my life. Very glad, very thankful. So, thanks for the memories, Steve. You'll always be loved. You'll always be remembered by all of us. My son wants to say a few things from his memories, so I'll let him come on up and have his old mom waddle down. You sit down and then I'll just grab onto it.
Thank you, Mom, for giving me a little bit of your time. I know I wasn't on the program, so I'll be short, but my Grandpa Steve and I had a great relationship. It was one of making fun of each other and playing pranks on us, and just a few quick stories. I was going over to the house to just talk to Grandma and Grandpa, but I had another plan in mind, and I took my golf clubs, and I was going to convince Grandpa to go golfing with me. And Grandma said, well, he's not even here, and he's up at the cabin doing work, and he's got to get a lot of stuff done up there. And I said, well, Grandma, I'll just sneak up there and help him get that work done even faster. And she looked at me, and I was like, yeah, I'll go up there. And she's all, well, he doesn't even have his gloves with him. And I said, well, I'll take him up there with me just in case we get done. And she reluctantly let me go back into the bedroom and grab his clubs. And I headed up to the cabin, and he was up to the top of the cabin building some beds, and went up there, and he's all, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I came up to help you. And he's all, he knew that I had something up my sleeve. And he's all, well, if you came up here to golf, I didn't bring my clubs. I said, I didn't come up here to golf. I came up here to help you, get some work done. And so we started building the beds and knocked out the beds. And then we had some stuff to do underneath the deck with spraying some weeds. And we put some sand in that sandbox down there. And I said, about that golf, Grandpa, I did bring your clubs. And so we went golfing until the sun went down. And every time I'd visit him, he would laugh and just be, do you remember when you brought those clubs up? And we went golfing. And then the next story he'd always bring up to me is we were golfing again. This one was planned, and we left up early to get up there to eat breakfast and then to do a round of golfing. But we were coming around on the 10th hole, and I must have been winning because he came up to this sprinkler, and the sprinkler was on full blast, and it was going around the cart path, and we couldn't go past it, and this way was trees, and that way was too close to the green. You're not supposed to drive on it. And he said, just let me out here. I'll go grab that sprinkler head and move it out of our way. So I let him out. He grabs the sprinkler head, turns it. He's all, okay, go. And then as soon as I go, he turns that sprinkler head right on me and soaked me from head to toe. So I was soaking wet for the rest of that golf tournament, that golf game. But, oh, man, it was funny. And he laughed about that one. And if any of you that have been to the cabin ever seen that little Garfield that is hanging up above the bar there that had the Thor shirt on it in the golf club? That was given to me as a Christmas present when I was young. And I took it up to the cabin because I wanted to show Grandpa and thought he would like it. And he liked it so much he convinced me, hey, let's just hang that up there for the time being. And it was up there till he sold the cabin. He never once would give me that Garfield back again. And I went on my mission. And he would send me pictures of him and Garfield playing golf, him and Garfield at the restaurant, him and Garfield out on the cabin porch, nonstop cabin. And then one day I get this big envelope on my mission, and I open it up, and it's a certificate saying that he had officially adopted Garfield. He went and got it notarized. He went and got it signed. He signed a side, and another side had a cat print on it from Garfield, and a picture of him walking out of the courthouse with it and just smiling ear to ear that he had officially adopted this Garfield. And it was great. So we'd give each other a hard time about how Garfield would be more happy where I was than where he was, and we'd always give each other a hard time and go back and forth. So those are the memories I'll never forget of my grandpa, and I'll miss him. And being able to call him and just give each other a hard time. You're going to be missed, Grandpa, and we love you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank those who've participated thus far in the program. Our next speaker will be Therese Salgy, representing my aunt Cindy Salgy Pribno. Unfortunately, when Cindy, my aunt, and her husband were traveling, they had a little mishap in Wyoming. He slipped and fell and hurt himself, had to turn around and go back to Minnesota. So my sister will be giving her talk in my aunt's stead. Following my sister be my father, Richard Roy Salgy, and we'll proceed to that point.
Oh, I should get the front page. How do you describe or put into a few words the life of someone who has lived 102 years? Those of us who were lucky enough to call him family, Steve was simply the best. I first got to know him from the stories of my dad, Ivan, and my Aunt Mary, Steve's older brother and sister, that they shared about him. Before I ever met him in person, I knew how much he was loved, simply by the way they talked about him. Those stories formed an impression of him, and after meeting him in person, I felt I had known him for all my life. Whenever my family came from Duluth to Utah, seeing Uncle Steve along with other family members was very important to us. I have fond memories of driving to Wendover to try our luck with Uncle Steve, my brother Dick, and my husband Bob. We had lots of laughs at our PTA meetings, and just a few dollars were spent. On one trip to Jackpot, Nevada, I had the opportunity to sit alone and have a couple of cocktails with Uncle Steve. He told me many stories about growing up, along with a few that I had never heard before. We sat together for almost 2 hours. I was and still am in awe of him. I was fortunate to visit the mountain cabin several times. We would spend the evenings talking and relaxing on the deck. Steve would enjoy his highballs along with a cigar. We all know well how much he loved to golf. I would take him to the Wasatch Golf Course Cafe for breakfast or lunch. The servers there had known him for many years and adored him. How could they not? He was so much fun to be with, always laughing and joking around. I am so grateful that my husband and daughters and their partners got to know Steve as well. Many of you know that Steve's parents and his older brother Ivan immigrated from Croatia and settled in Duluth. From his Croatian roots was one of his favorite delicacies, was walnut potica, a old world nut bread made from very thinly rolled sweet dough with a cream filling made of ground walnuts, honey, and heavy cream. For Steve's birthday and for Christmas, I would make several loaves and ship them to him. On his birthday, I would send 4 loaves, which we fiercely guarded and rarely shared with anyone. My brother Dick will attest to that. When Steve was running low on his pizza supply, he would call me and ask, "Is the bakery still in business?" I would chuckle and say, "Yes, I'll get right on that." Once he received his treats, he would send me a big note, a thank you note with a $20 bill inside and a message to say, "Keep on baking." I would call him to let him know I received the card and to tell him thank you and the $20 wasn't necessary, but it was appreciated. To which he would reply, "What did I tell you about that?" To which I would reply, "You told me the old man can do what he wants to." What joy it has been to share that with him. We all know that Uncle Steve proudly served his country as a naval submariner in World War II on the USS Greenland 213. Prior to his 100th birthday, I created a book to honor his 100th birthday. Let me get my page started. Through various resources, I was able to contact Bud Atkinson, the president of the Holland Club, an organization of retired submariners. Uncle Steve was honored for his World War II naval service by being made an honorary member of the club and congratulated for his 75th anniversary of being a submariner. I was so grateful for Bud's actions that I sent a donation in honor of Uncle Steve to the Holland Club. Uncle Steve was born in Minnesota, but he was a proud Green Bay Packer fan, faithfully watching them throughout the years. When I asked him why he was a Packers fan instead of a Minnesota Vikings fan, he replied, "Because my sister Mary told me I had to be one." And his sister Mary lived her entire married life in Wisconsin, home of the Green Bay Packers. In 2022, Mary's son David Demeraux arranged to have a large American flag flown over the United States Capitol in Uncle Steve's honor for his 102nd birthday. David then had the flag mailed to Uncle Steve. Steve is so proud of the flag, and the picture on the back of the program shows Steve with the flag displayed on the wall in his home. While there are several people involved in looking after Steve during the past several months, I would especially like to acknowledge and thank my brother Dick and his wife Joan for everything they have done for Uncle Steve through the years. Whether it was Joan making him hunky steak, or Dick taking him to appointments or out to lunch or to PTA meetings in Wendover, I know he appreciated and loved all that you both did for him. He has a very special bond with you. Dick, he will be forever your best buddy forever. I feel so fortunate to have been able to call Uncle Steve family. I enjoyed my time and relationship with him, and I am truly honored to be his niece. Our bond was very special. I will forever miss him and keep him close to my heart. He will always be Steve Salgy, the man, the myth, and the legend.
Testing. Oh, you're supposed to turn that off. Oh, thank you. Scared me for a minute. Genuine friendships can be hard to come by. Many people walk in and out of our lives and leave footprints on our hearts. Only true friends leave footprints on our lives. Steve was one of those people. Our friendship was forged with blood, sweat, laughter, and tears. It is the real test. It is said that a real test is of a friendship can be when you can enjoy the moments you can enjoy the moments of life that are utterly simple, and that's a big yes from me. Steve and I enjoyed just hanging out and having a good time together. We had a unique bond only two buddies could share. Our favorite haunts was Callie's Cafe in Orem, and Jim's Family Restaurant in American Fork. Baskin and Robbins was one of our high points, on our favorite list. With 31 flavors of ice cream, how could you go wrong? How could you possibly go wrong? However, our choice was always large, creamy, chocolate fudge malts. Then we would go to Apollo Burger and get golden French fries and head back to Steve's house to eat and play cards. Every spring when Steve's tulips came up, I knew it was time to head to the cabin in Midway. The snow had melted off and 2 decks needed to be sanded off and repainted. It was intensive back-breaking work, and Steve never complained. He always took our work with pride. Life was meant for good friends and great adventures. I was Steve's designated driver to go over to Wendover. He would call me on the phone and say, "I need a PTA meeting." Translation, party time again. A good thing about having a best buddy, you can be silly and crazy and some of the times. Steve liked to travel the back roads, so that's through Lehigh for you guys, up through Lehigh and back around the old way that they went. For years they went that way. Anyway, so we went that way, the back roads to Wendover for 3.5 hours. That's quite a ride. And I would entertain Steve by making up stories about various towns as we went. And I'm not going to say all of them because you'd be bored to death. Or not really. They were great times. I said, I would say, Steve, did you know that John Stockton's grandfather settled the town of Stockton? Now, maybe most of you know where these towns are, even though they're small. He found a gold mine on his property, and he got rich. And I said, then years later, John Stockton inherited the property, and he built a subdivision, and he made a fortune. And then his friend Carl Malone, he got property there, and he bought some property next to John's subdivision down the road a ways, and he built high-rise apartments, and he got rich also. He made his fortune there too. And then they had a road between their two developments, and they called it Stockton to Malone Drive. And then we drove on to the next town, and I said, did you know that years ago Ulysses S. Grant came to Utah, and he liked it so well, he bought 1,500 acres around, and he had this large ranch, and he had 200 buffaloes on this ranch, and he loved it. And the people were so excited that he bought that ranch and wanted to be there off and on, and he would come back, that they actually named a town after him. And that's why they called it Grantsville. So this went on. And of course, I did most other towns at the time. Anyway, so some family members who lived in Utah would, oh, wait a minute, I missed something here. Let me see. Oh, trips to Wendover became a family affair, as Larry can testify. Anyway, and the ones that lived in Utah would laugh and laugh because they knew what I was doing. And of course, I think Steve got a hold of it, but it just drove him nuts. And he would say, stop it. I don't want to hear them stories no more. I don't want to hear any more history lessons. I don't want it. Stop it. And I would reply, but these guys are don't know the history of our area. They need to hear these stories. And so these guys were laughing. Him and his brother was with me at that time. So the next time, I had relatives from out of town. And so I was going that way, and I would start my stories, and he would just go crazy. I don't want to hear those stories. I don't want to hear those history lessons. Stop it. And I said, I would reply, but these guys are from out of town. They've got to learn this. And so I would tell the stories. And each time I'd tell these stories, I could embellish them very much. It was fun. And so he was having a fit. So on our third story or trip over there with on the way back, he said, he just begged me, please, no more history lessons. So I told him, okay, if I can drive on the freeway home, I won't do any more history lessons. So I drove home on the freeway, and we got home in 2 hours. Yes. Steve replied, anything. I can do what I want. I don't want to hear those stories anymore. Anyway, when we got home in 2 hours, Steve went, we'll never go back on the back roads again. And anyway, scheduling doctor appointments. That was a real trip. We'd go into the doctor's appointments, and the receptionist would say, Steve, what time do you want to come? 6 a.m. sharp. And they would get timid and say, Steve, we don't open till 8. He said, okay, 8 o'clock sharp. and he was emphatic about that. And so anyway, all the receptionists and the nurses loved him. I was like, what's up with this guy, you know? But they just loved him. And So anyway, we come into this next time, and he always wants to be on time. Comes early. And turn it over. Oh, he had the receptionists, and they loved him to death. Anyway, he would beguile them with boxes of Whitman's, chocolates, samplers, dark chocolates. They all loved and adored Steve. He never ate the chocolates, but he always gave them away. At one time, he had 48 boxes of chocolates in his dresser drawer there, or his cabinet. And he did a lot of wooing. Didn't matter which doctor's office he went into, and I mean, he had a lot of them. And I think they called him just to see him. But he gave chocolates to all these gals, and they loved him. So one time he's at his heart doctor, and he checking him out, and he says, "So when do you like to come in, Steve?" He said, 6 o'clock. The doctor says, "No, that's too early." He said, "Okay, I'll come in at 7. The guy looked at him, he says, "Well, I've had breakfast. I'm up and I've had breakfast. For you, Steve, I'll come in. Just for you." And he did. So anytime we had a doctor's appointment with that doctor, he came in. I was totally surprised, really, when he said that. Up to that time, he always thought I was up to hell, and he did. Steve was Mr. Punctual. He was insistent about driving and doing things. At that time, right, you had to be early and not a minute late. And he expected the same punctuality from others, including his doctors. I think the nurses made sure we got in there so that they didn't get it. So as we arrived, as usual, for his 8 o'clock appointment, they took us right into the room there, to the exam room, and waited and waited and waited. And 15 minutes later, here come the doctor. "Hello, Steve. You're 15 minutes late." And the doctor started to say something, and he just said, "You're late. I was here on time. You expect me here on time. I expect you to be here on time." And the doctor didn't say no more. I don't think that doctor was late again. So you heard it said that anybody who thinks sitting in the church can make you a Christian also thinks that sitting in a garage will make you a car. We all know that Steve was not a brick and mortar church sort of guy. However, he believed in God and his goodness and in his Son, Jesus Christ. Steve's religion was very simple. His religion was kindness. Steve and my wife had a delightful relationship. Steve called her gorgeous, and she called him handsome. Of course, I would make a little noise, and that just tickled him to death. In October of 21, my wife was gravely ill and in a hospital. And Uncle Steve called me up. And he said, "I don't pray. I usually don't pray, but I'm going to pray for Gorgeous." And I'm sure he did. Dang it. Steve has fought the good fight. He has finished the course, and now he will participate in the most esteemed tournament of all, the Masters. We can be comforted and assured that in store for him the crown of righteousness which the Lord, the righteous God, the righteous judge, will award him one day, as he will live forever in glorious eternity. There's an old Dutch sailor's expression, weigh anchor. It is an order to bring all anchors aboard the vessel in preparation for departure. In response to the order, the phrase, anchors aweigh, I know, I'm taking a minute, reports back to that all anchors are clear of the sea bottom. Therefore, the ship is officially underway. Fittingly, my best buddy forever, it's anchors away. So until we meet again once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. And I hope you have a wonderful PTA meeting. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Submarine force, World War II, 1 in 5 died. So highest statistically casualty rate. Uncle Steve used to say when they used to go ashore and the shore patrol guys would let them go because they're like, oh, those guys are submariners. They're probably not going to make it, so they don't have to obey curfew. So he used to have a good time. One quick story. He said that the most scared he's ever been in his life was when they were depth charged for 4 to 6 hours, depending on which account. And he says that he heard the captain come over the intercom and say, "Gun commander," to the bridge, which meant that the sub was going to surface and that the guys who were manning the gun was going to go out and try to duke it out with the destroyer. And if you know anything about ships, yeah, that's not going to happen. So, but luckily, just right after that, the 4 destroyers that were depth charging them figured they were dead. They drove off, and here we get to celebrate Uncle Steve's life here in 2023 and not 1944. Once again, thank you for your prayers, your comments, and your attendance today. It's been a privilege. It's been a privilege to recognize Uncle Steve. I just want to read this one last statement. Then we'll have a closing song. God bless America. and then we'll have a benediction by Richard Lewis Lamb. And then these services will be adjourned. The statement reads, as it is written in Steve's obituary, it's not where you are in life, it's who you have by your side that matters. Family and friends help us through this life. They are the only things from this world that we could hope to meet in the next. May God bless each and every one who has touched Steve's life for good and enriched his many days.
Our Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads before Thee in gratitude this day for the life of Steve Salgy. We're thankful for the opportunity which we have had to be associated with him, to feel of his love, and to see of his example. And we're thankful for the life he lived, the service he gave, and the sacrifices that he made in our behalf. Now we'd humbly ask you to bless us, that we might find comfort, as we will surely miss him. May we be able to fondly remember the cherished memories. May we be able to hold them dear and continue to enjoy the influence of Steve, of his happiness, his smile, and his personality. We also ask, Father, a blessing upon us as we travel, that we might be able to do so in safety. And these things we pray for. In the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.